Kaz Grala is the winner, the youngest driver to win at Daytona in NASCAR National Touring Series history.
Joey Stone just picked up his first career win. Holy cow, what a finish.
Things get dicey at Talladega, guys. Welcome back to another episode of All Clear. I'm Joey Stone. He is Kaz Grala, where we break down everything that happened over the weekend for NASCAR. Kaz, crazy weekend at Talladega, not only for yourself, but for the cup race, the fans. Lots to dive in from this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I felt like a bit of a unique Talladega weekend. I definitely felt like that with the cup race. So lots to talk about.
Lots to talk about for sure. Now, I think we should just go ahead and just dive in to this weekend here, starting with the Cup series of things. We're going to get to your race, obviously, and your first start for Big Machine Racing. The Cup race, a lot of people had high expectations for this one. I think we expected a really entertaining race, considering what we saw what these cars did in Daytona when it came to the racing product. And it didn't disappoint. It did not disappoint one bit. We saw lots of action. We saw some good racing. Of course, we saw some single file here and there. You want to make sure you get to the end there. But I was really impressed with the roster of drivers. They made some moves with about 25, 30 to go and made it interesting for that last 45 minutes of the race.
Yeah, they did. And I mean, the number one thing I saw there with the next gen car was, which maybe we did see at Daytona. I was busy during that race, so I didn't get to see it on TV. But it looks like the cars are so stable that they can really push hard. And we saw that bite them a couple times, actually, most notably the one where Bubba Wallace got into the back of Joey Logano and turned him sideways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can push so hard, but of course there comes a point where it was too hard. And you saw on that restart there how hard everybody was pushing. And eventually, when you get that bottled up, that much energy compacted with all of the cars, if it gets to be too much, one guy is going to be the one that pops out and gets taken out of that shuffle. And that was Logano. He ended up going into the wall pretty aggressively there. And that was probably our biggest wreck of the day in the cup race, I'd say. I mean, there were a lot of cars involved in that, couple of hard hits. Although the one when Daniel Hemrick blew up, that was a big crash as well. So, I mean, certainly no shortage of action in the cup race, but I kind of like the way those cars look like they handle. I enjoy when the cars are stable on the super speedways, because then you get more aggression. The more that you have under you as far as maneuverability in the car and grip, the more you'll be able to see guys change lanes, make those blocks, make those moves. And it doesn't result in any less crashes. In fact, the more grip you give people, they'll probably crash more because they'll be able to be more aggressive and things go wrong. That you'll never get that out of it. That's always going to happen. So you add grip and you can really see them dicing it up. And I like that. I felt like the Xfinity cars this weekend were kind of on the opposite end of that. I felt like we actually didn't have as much grip as I figured that we would there. We were pretty on edge. Still saw a great race, plenty of crashes, but it was harder to make those moves, harder to be aggressive when it came to changing lanes, blocking. It was not that easy. So I like what they've done with the cup package, and I think we've got to talk about that last lap, because I was a part of the Talladega last lap last year in this exact race, in the cup race, and
top 10 as well for you.
Yeah, sixth. I was like 2 millimeters away from fifth, side by side with De Benedetto. We were actually so close for fifth that my transponder did cross first. So TV had me listed as fifth because my transponder pinged before his. But when they looked at our noses on the camera, the slow-mo camera for the finish, it was like that much ahead that he was. So I ended up being scored sixth. But this year, that last lap, which you always know, when you're in the driver's seat at a place like Talladega,
something's going to happen. You know something's going to happen.
When it's like 8 laps to go, 5 laps to go, everyone's getting antsy, but everyone knows that whatever happens between now and the last lap almost doesn't matter. And everything that matters is what happens on that last lap. So you want to play those laps coming, leading into that last lap as best you can because you want to be in the position you need to be in to be able to make something happen on the last lap. You don't want to take the white flag in 20th, but
unless you're Dale Earnhardt, unless you're Dale Earnhardt.
You might rather take the white flag in 8th than in 6th, depending on where that is on the track. If you're 8th in the line that's got the momentum or leading that line on the outside, you probably have a better chance than the guy that's sitting 4th deep in the inside line that doesn't have the momentum, even though they might be ahead of you position-wise. So that's what's so interesting about these, and you never know what that last lap's going to look like. Well, it was a disorganized mess. It was bizarre. It was probably the weirdest last lap I've ever seen because they came out of turn 4, and all of a sudden I felt like the outside line just didn't have momentum.
Just
it wasn't
stopped.
really going anywhere. It was just stalled out, and you had like the 3 or 4 leaders on the bottom all strung out, and they looked like they were going to have it no problem because there really wasn't anything coming on the top, which was interesting.
The only time I saw the outside make an attempt, the only time I saw the outside make a run and I thought, oh man, here they come, they're going to make it happen, was when Chase Elliott was leading the line. And I remember he went from like 14th all the way up to like, I think he was like 3rd on the outside or 2nd. And then I think it was Byron and then Jones stopped the momentum and went to the top. And as soon as that happened, the outside went away. It was gone and it never came back.
And it was bizarre because coming to the checkered, it was Jones and
Larson in the front.
Second.
Yeah.
So the two of them, all they really needed to do was stay single file, and they'd have finished 1st and 2nd.
Yep.
What was so odd was they both moved up to block like a non-existent ghost run and basically just waved Chastain by.
See. I think what happened though, and I think if we look back at the replay of this, and for anyone listening, go look at it. Larson obviously is going to pull a classic Dega move: get the run, get the side draft, get the photo finish at the end, and see if you get the win, right? But we don't know if it was Larson or his spotter that cleared Kyle and made him put Kurt Busch into the wall when Kurt was there. Now, if you're Eric Jones in the situation, and vouch for me here, or just tell me if I'm wrong, because I mean, you're the driver, I'm not. When you're coming in the tri-oval on the last lap at Talladega, you're mirror driving. You're mirror driving and watching what's happening behind you. When is Kyle going to make that move on me to go for the win? So I think Eric Jones wasn't expecting to go that high up the track. But the problem was when Kyle hit Kurt Busch, it moved Kyle's car higher up than Eric Jones intended. So Eric just went with it and was so focused on Kyle, he didn't even see Chastain's run. Now, if you're Eric Jones's spotter there, it's a tough call here. Yeah, the one car's there. You can't really tell what kind of run he's going to get, though. All of a sudden, Chastain gets a huge run and just clears Eric Jones and Larson with no problem whatsoever. You can't put it on Eric Jones, I think. I think that's just more of, hey, he's blocking Kyle, but he didn't know Kyle got hit by Kurt, which sent the 5 higher up the track. So he didn't even know Chastain got that huge run, and by the time he realized it, it was way too late. Tough break for Eric Jones, though. I mean, I think that's somebody I think we can say, was racing for Joe Gibbs Racing, right? 20 car, perfect place for any young guy who wants to be in the Cup Series, and gets moved for Christopher Bell, goes to the 43 car when they practically, were starting from scratch again. And you can tell that program has made huge strides over this year. It doesn't even look like the same organization from 2-3 years ago. And their win's going to come. I think they're going to win a race at some point. I don't know when it's going to be. Tough break for the 43.
Yeah. And I think you're exactly right with what happened on the last lap. I think he was mirror driving. I think he moved up to block Larson. If I'm Eric Jones, I'm sitting down with my spotter this week and I'm saying, all right, how can we communicate better so that the next time I know that the 5 didn't have momentum? Because that's the key. The 5 moved up, but with no momentum.
To get the side draft. He didn't have a push, though. He just went up there to get the right rear corner.
He was at that point trying to hold on to second by maybe side drafting Kurt or blocking Kurt or something. He did not have a run on the 43. So the 43 moved up to block what wasn't really a run. And I think they just ran such a greater distance through the tri-oval. I don't even know that Chastain necessarily had any significant run. He just stayed glued to the bottom. These guys all move up and run more distance, and all of a sudden, he's leading the race at the finish
Well,
line.
yeah, you're going to carry more speed by sitting in a single file line and not moving left and right like you're trying to go through traffic in 575 on Atlanta. That's the thing.
Yeah.
If you keep a car straight, you're naturally going to go faster than someone blocking left and right, and you lose speed by doing that. Especially going
absolutely.
up a tri-oval, you lose speed. So
yeah, absolutely. So
was,
I think he stayed glued on the bottom. He inherited the lead, and I don't think that the 43 knew that there was nothing for him to have to block on that 5. So, you know, everyone can easily look back on a race and see the aerial coverage and be like, well, why would someone do that? Well, when you're in the race car, you've only got so much information. You've only got such a view of it. Your spotter can only say one thing at a time, and you can hardly see things from inside of the car. So absolutely, in that scenario, he thinks he's doing what he has to do to win the race, had no idea that the 5 didn't have a run and that the 1 was actually about to get one on the bottom. So that is a tough break. I hated to see that for him because I mentioned I was involved in the last lap shuffle last year at Talladega, and I was on the right end of things. Eric was on the wrong end of things. There was an inside line, there was an outside line, and the 3-car AD was coming with a run up the middle, and I popped from the bottom to the middle, and Austin just chiseled me right in between 2 other cars and parted the sea. Those 2 cars were Chastain and Eric Jones. And Eric Jones ends up out in the outside wall. Chastain ends up with a flat right rear tire in the inside wall. And I just came barreling through the middle to a 6th place.
Look what you did. You gave them a sense to get revenge on you, and they literally go and they're fighting for the win at Dega, and Chastain gets the dub. Look what you did. You fueled him, man. You fueled him.
I remember getting a not so pleased text from Chastain last year after that last lap, and I'm like, look, I don't know what you want me to do.
Don't blame me, blame AD. He pushed me.
Yeah, but I mean, it's true. On the last lap of a super speedway, you
gotta go for it. You have to.
You have to do. Like, there was a gap. I shot it. You had to, and ultimately, it was the right thing because I came out on the right end of it. It's hard in those split-second decisions to try to weigh, you know, well, how is this going to affect everyone else? You have momentum and you have a gap. You go for it. Period. And things will unfold however they unfold. And those 2 guys, unfortunately, didn't come out on the right end of it. Not necessarily my fault directly, but it's
a racing deal. It happens.
It's 3 cars fighting for the same real estate a couple hundred yards away from the finish line at Talladega. Everyone's going to be fighting for position for that line. You know, one guy goes to side draft while the other guy goes up to block, and you got a guy coming in the middle. Like, cars get together. It happens. We were luckily on the right end of it, but
I got to ask you this though.
This year was ultimately on the right end of it, and Eric, unfortunately, once again on the wrong end of it, but at least finished well.
Yeah. See, I got to ask you this though, right? And coming from a driver like you, right? And I think a lot of fans who are listening to this may ask this question to themselves. We see in these plate races a lot, right? Why is the aggression always picked up a lot in like stages 1 and 2? Like, and hear me out on this part, right? The last few races, and like, I wouldn't say the last few have been good, right? But there was a time when the last 2 or 3 laps of a plate race were so boring. Like, it was single file. The guy wouldn't make the move until maybe turns 3 and 4. You wouldn't get 2-3 wide. It just, I don't know. It didn't really do it for anybody. And I wondered why was the aggression so high in stages like 2 and like, you know, and 1, but in stage 3, and even especially like, and not this race, thank goodness, not this race, but I've always wanted to ask you, why does it seem like near the end of these races, people wait so long to make a move, but yet in stages 1 and 2, we see some crazy plate racing that nearly can take out the entire field. And we've seen it happen before.
Well, I'm going to guess that this is the reason for that. You know, if you pop out, you make a move in stage 1 or 2, and it works really well, then you may be in a good position to gain stage points. If you make that move and it doesn't work, you may get shuffled to the back of the pack.
Or get
If
wrecked.
you've got a lot of time to make it back through. I think if you are looking to make a move, try to make a big push in the last couple laps of the race, if it doesn't pan out and you get shuffled to the back, there is no time to recover. So I think people make sure they're a lot more sure of their moves when they're coming down to the end of the race than they are in the middle of the race, because there's just more to lose. Obviously, also more to gain. So you always see people make those moves, but they have to be more calculated about it. And the less time you leave yourself to fall back, if it doesn't go well, the better. That's why you make your move on the backstretch on the last lap, and well, I'm either going to go forward and this is worth it, or I'm not going to have that much time to fall back. So I'm not going to fall that far back by the finish. I think that's why you see that. But honestly, the reason why you see some of the aggression that you see throughout the race, because I know I often wonder this myself. You're early in stage 3, you still have a whole pit stop left, a whole long green flag run between you and the finish of this thing. Why are we 3 wide bump drafting, pushing each other, jacking each other sideways in the middle of the pack here at this point in the race? And truthfully, I think that the answer to that is twofold. I think it's bragging rights, and I think it's boredom. I think that when people settle in to just single file around the top, which we've seen so many times at Talladega and Daytona, the truth is that's not that exciting. Even for us drivers, it's not that exciting. It's boring. And especially if you're sitting there in 11th or 12th, you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't want to be here. I want to be up front. So why am I just going to sit here? Why would I be content to just ride right here? I'm here to race, so I'm going to try something. I'm going to pull out. And you see that throughout the races. I think that the drivers truly just don't ever want to settle in, because they're like, well, this race is going to go by way too slowly if we just hang out and are comfortable here. Screw it. We'll just dice it up a little bit and, pass the time. They've
been getting better at it though. They've been getting better at it though, and I will admit that whenever we do see the single file, it doesn't take as long for someone to make a move and someone to go with them. And I applaud the drivers for doing that though, because at one point in time, and I think 2013, 2014, around there, I think of the 2013 Daytona 500, dude, they were single file for maybe 75-80% of the race, and it was such a bad race. And I love the 500, but it was such a I can't even think about that race. It makes me want to boil. But
I think about, there was an Xfinity race not too long ago. I think it was maybe 2019, the season opening Xfinity race.
Mm-hmm. Was I there?
Michael Annett led. No, I wasn't in it. Michael Annett led, I think, the entire third stage and won the race.
Yeah, he won the race.
Nobody tried to do anything. And I remember everyone after that race was pissed, all the fans, because it's like, well, why didn't somebody do something? Why were you all in single file? And it is, I've always been intrigued by this, because the super speedway racing style is so unique and so bizarre and truly unpredictable
and frustrating.
Because everything that you do, every move you make out there is dependent solely on what everybody else does in reaction to your move.
Mm-hmm.
You can get out of line and you could lead the race, or you could be last, and you didn't do anything different. Just depends on what everybody else did around you. When it starts to go to the top and you see everyone single filing out, well, everyone has to do that. Nobody can just consciously say, no, I'm going to stay on the bottom. I don't want to make this single file. Because the problem is, if you're the one guy that does that, they all get up there, you fall to the back of the line all the way back. And now you have no track position, and you have your work cut out to try to get back up through there. So if you've got a hold of the top where you're at right now, you're taking it, because you don't want to be the odd man. It's like musical chairs. You don't want to be the odd man left out. So you got to get up there. Then everyone gets up there and they're like, we don't want to be up here, single file. This is terrible. Yeah. Now everyone's thinking about, all right, what move can we make to get back to the bottom after you all just rushed up to the top? It's really, really interesting. And I've always wondered, like, well, what creates that? What move was made that the first person went to the top and then the second person went to the top, and then everyone else starts thinking, well, maybe we need to get to the top, and then everyone goes to the top, so now everyone has to go to the top. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy there, and it's really an interesting way that the choreography happens on plate races, and it almost takes on a personality of its own, a personality that reflects that series and the drivers in it that day, because you'll have 4 Xfinity races on super speedways each year, and the 4 of them don't necessarily look the same, and it's the same drivers in them that year for the most part, but there could be it's all affected by outside forces, because if you have a rain delay, everyone's antsy. They're going to race harder even if they don't need to. They're just going to, because everyone's been sitting around for 3 hours and they're like, well, we're not going to go sit around and ride on the top now. We want to race
get
hard.
the adrenaline back up. Get the adrenaline back up.
So all of a sudden, everybody's dicing hard. The Daytona 500, you typically see really hard racing because it's the Daytona 500. It doesn't even matter. Even if you don't win the race, if you go lead laps in Daytona 500, that's a big deal. That's badass. So literally at every point of the race, everyone's trying to race hard because it's the Daytona 500. You just see all these different styles of racing and different attitudes by the drivers while they're out there, and it completely changes what the show looks like. But I do feel like most of the time, the super speedways don't disappoint. They typically are exciting. Sometimes you have a tame race and you get all your excitement packed into the last 30 laps of the race and there's carnage. Sometimes it's steady excitement all the way through. It just depends. But I can tell you this Cup race that I watched, I found that last lap incredibly intriguing because there were guys making moves that seemed odd and out of place to me that ultimately dictated the finish of the race and the winner of the race. And
it almost handed Eric Jones the win. It almost did.
It almost did. Yeah.
Like I saw some of the moves and I saw some of the moves and I'm like, why is nobody going with them? Why is no one going? Like, go. Like, and that's why I applaud some of the guys who made moves with like 20 to go, 25 to go, because there's like, hey, if I make my move now and it doesn't work, I have more laps to try it again. And that's something I've always baffled. It's just baffling to me. It's like you sit there, you make your move with 1 to go, it doesn't work. Don't you wish you made that move with like 20 to go and just see if it worked? If it didn't, hey, at least I got another opportunity to try it later. That's just my way of looking at plate racing. It's like, hey, don't go with 5 to go. Don't go with 4. I go with 10 to go or 15, because if you make the move, it doesn't work out. And it's like, hey, I didn't wreck yet. Let me back up and let me try it again. And let's see what happens here.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. And everyone talks about, well, do you want to be the leader on the white flag? And most people would say, no, I don't want to be the leader. I want to be second, or I want to be third. I want to have a chance to get a run at the leader. I want to be leading. And I'll tell you why. Because pay attention the next time you watch a super speedway race. The word that comes to mind for me on the last lap is disorganization. Always. Throughout the entire race, you typically will see them 2 wide or 3 wide in lines. That's how they generate momentum. And the leader blocking in stage 2 has to work these 3 lanes and pay attention to which one's got the momentum now, block it, and get that push out front from that line. The last lap, nothing stays in order like that, because the problem is if I'm pushing you and we're on the outside line, we're not leading the race yet. We're trying to get up to the lead. Well, we come out of turn 4 and I don't want you to beat me. So I'm going to pull out on you and I'm going to side draft you to try to beat you to get that position. Well, meanwhile, that just stalled out both of our momentums.
Yep.
If you're the leader at the white flag, I'd say sometimes, which in this case, Eric Jones, he did, but he shouldn't have, he didn't need to. You may not even need to block a run, because all the runs that do come from out back will kind of disintegrate when everybody starts racing each other.
Especially with this package too. This package as well, runs stall out very quickly if you do not have the help.
Yeah, so when everybody gets more worried about racing each other than trying to get out front for the win, then all of a sudden that just stalls those runs completely. And so in this case, Ross Chastain, by doing essentially nothing, he took the white flag on the bottom and just stayed on the bottom the whole last lap and basically watched guys in front of him just peel out of his way. He just sat there, didn't block, didn't do anything, literally rode on the bottom, and everybody else stalled out their runs themselves, worrying about racing each other, focused on each other, and not focused on being out front. And Ross was just all of a sudden out front. So I think I want to be the leader, and I think I'm probably going to stay committed to whoever my pusher currently is, and I'm going to ride with them. And people are going to do stuff to the inside, to the outside, to the very top, whatever. I don't think any of it's going to pan out. I think they're all going to beat themselves, and I'm just going to be right where I want to be in the lead there. That's what I think.
Eric Jones and Kyle Larson were playing checkers. Ross Chastain was playing chess. He was playing chess and pulled. He pulled an absolutely boring yet amazing move. He just sat there and he took the win, and you got to give him props for it. He kept the car clean. Didn't he have like a penalty early in the race too? And he came back. I can't remember if he was a lap down or not. I can't remember, but I know he was in the back for a while and then came back up. Regardless, good win for Chastain. Good stuff for Trackhouse. I mean, no one thought Trackhouse was even going to have 2 wins this year. Maybe 1 win at most, but Chastain has really come out of nowhere this year. I mean, I don't think anyone expected him to win at COTA. We talked about that. We didn't think he was going to win at COTA, and we saw what this team was capable of. They used the same car from COTA at Talladega. I don't know if you saw that. They used the same car from COTA at Talladega and won this race. I'm seeing another coming of the T-Rex car from like 97 at this point. That car needs to go into the Trackhouse Museum by the time Chastain retires in years. But great job for Trackhouse. Second win for them. And again, Daniel Suarez, who I think could win a race this year at some point. Trackhouse, man, coming to becoming a powerhouse here in front of our very eyes, and no one expected that. I thought 2311 was going to be a little ahead of Trackhouse by this point, but hey, shout out to Justin Marks and everyone over there at Trackhouse. They're doing an amazing job over there. Can't wait to see what else that team can do. We talked about the Cup race right there. Again, Chastain picking up his second win. Lots of crazy stuff right there. Lots of good stories from that. Good racing, like we talked about, especially with this package and everything. Cars are pushing each other a lot more, which is great, especially in the corners. Cars aren't getting wobbly as much, which is something the drivers and the fans love to see. But moving on to the Xfinity race, Kaz, like we mentioned here, those cars definitely a lot less grip. And coming from someone who was in the race, your first career start for Big Machine Racing, a surprising opportunity that I know told you it came out of nowhere for you. I'm sure you're very happy about it, considering the time I got to spend with you and the Big Machine guys on Saturday. It seems like you're in a really good place right now, especially for Dover. Some good group of guys over there and whatnot. Break it down for us, man. Tell us what it was like this weekend. Tell us about your race. We know it didn't really end the way I think we all were hoping for. Let's break it down here. What do you got?
Yeah, so my first time working with the Big Machine Racing guys, and I would say Talladega probably isn't the ideal place to get your footing with a team and try to put up a result and give feedback on the car, because Talladega is just kind of its own animal. And we all knew going into it, we're going to try to have a fast car and see what we can do, make all the right moves. And sometimes you come out on the right end of things. Sometimes you come out on the wrong end. This weekend, we came out on the wrong end, but wasn't for a lack of effort. I can tell you that. But so far, I really love working with everybody at Big Machine Racing. I think that it's a great group of guys. I think they're really smart, really capable. There's so much potential with this team, and it's just a good environment. Everyone's happy. Everyone's joking around. We had a lot of fun this weekend at the track, and they brought a great car, qualified 8th with it. How much more can you ask for? So we were thrilled about it, had really high hopes going into the race on Saturday. And I think we were, I would say, doing what I felt like was the right thing to do. Was you have to get a vibe off of how drivers around you are racing. I think that's very important. And it at the restrictor plate races, sometimes you like what you see out there, and you see guys giving good pushes, and you see lines generating momentum, and you think, all right, let's get up in there. Let's get to the front of this. Let's race with these guys. Other times you see things getting a little bit too hairy, You're seeing some bad pushes. You're seeing some near misses, some good saves. Anytime
I saw you backing off a few times down there. I was like, this guy was middle 3 wide up in like 10th. All of a sudden, I see you in like 22nd the next lap, just hanging out. Which I don't blame you, by the way. It got really crazy.
You have to be smart about it, and you have to gauge off of how everybody around you is driving, and you got to know, look, it's the last lap that pays. It's the finish that matters. Sure, stage points can matter depending on what position you're in, but at the end of the day, your goal as the driver out there, what we all sit in our seat to do every weekend, is to finish the race and to finish as well as we can. But what you have to do is not wreck if you're going to do that. So, if you don't like what you're seeing around you and you think that guys are not being very smart right now, sometimes your best decision is to kind of hang out, wait it out, let those guys take each other out, then go race for it when you do get that track position. And I felt like we had done a great job of putting ourselves in smart positions. I like when we're coming down to the last 30, last 20, last 10 laps, I like to be on the bottom, because on the straightaway, it gives you options to be able to miss the wreck. You have some room, some maneuverability.
Out of 4, going down pit road, etc. Yeah.
Yeah. And in the corners, most of the time when people wreck, they'll wreck to the top. And it's a self-cleaning racetrack. They will then eventually slide down to the bottom. But if you're in the middle of that pack, they're not sliding down yet. They're still wrecking up. So if you're on the bottom, again, that's usually a decent place to be. It gives you more options. So that's right where we were. We were, I don't know, maybe the 8th car back or 9th car back on the bottom. Felt good about it. The bottom at the moment had momentum. Felt like we were in a safe place, and we were coming down towards the end of the race. You knew there were going to be wrecks. There already had been wrecks during the day, but you knew that that was only going to escalate. So I'm thinking to myself, man, we're right where we want to be. We're in a good spot here. And I truly believe that, because we were pretty much with the 3 car all day. He and I were kind of bumper to bumper. We stuck around each other a lot. Pseudo teammates off the RCR campus last weekend. So he went on to finish 2nd. And I do feel confident that we were in the right place to be able to get that finish. Unfortunately, what happened was the 19 was all the way at the top. We're all the way at the bottom. There was a small gap in the middle, and it's right into turn 1, which the spotters are looking at the back of the cars directly. It's really hard to have that depth perception at that angle. When you come off 4 and you go into 1, the spotters are looking at you, from the front and the back, not from the side. So it's
so they're in the middle of the tri-oval, right? Is that right? All the spotters are in the middle? Okay, all right, middle of the tri-oval.
So they're basically watching the cars drive straight away from them at that point. So the depth perception on clearing people can be very difficult. And there was a small gap in the middle, and the 19 spotter told him to fill it because the middle had momentum at the moment, which was the right call. But he admitted himself he misjudged that the run that the 18 car had, who was in the middle, right behind that gap. And the 19 went to turn down into that hole, and that hole closed up as he was getting into it. The 18 clipped the 19's rear bumper, and the 19 came down the track and hooked our right rear. So I'm just going off into 1, right? Everything's fine. You're looking at the pack ahead. You're trying to make sure that everything's going well up there, because if you got to jump out of it quick, you don't have much time to react. So, you're studying what's going on up ahead. You're full throttle. You're staying tucked up to the guy in front of you, super hyper-focused. And so I go to turn off into 1 wide open, and all of a sudden I'm backwards and driver's side into the wall. Didn't even know what happened. But yeah, looking back on it, the 19 just hooked my right rear, and that's the end of it. You're up into the wall, destroyed. So it was too bad that was the way things ended for us. Like I said, I think we really were in a good position, a smart position to be able to go be in contention at the end there. But that's Talladega. That happens. We'll move on to Dover, which I do feel like is a much better track to have potential to really gauge the program that Big Machine Racing has going on over there, be able to give feedback, and hopefully be able to have a solid run there. We've seen carnage at Dover. I'm not going to say it can't happen, because it absolutely can. But I'd say going into Talladega, you've got a 50-50 chance of finishing. Dover, I'd say you've got a better chance than that. But we'll have to see. Hopefully this is a good weekend. But as I said, I love working with those guys. I'd love to work with those guys more. I think having a good weekend in Dover will go a long way towards that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was there, watching you guys and everything, and looked like you guys had a very good piece. You had some great speed. Whenever you wanted to, you got up to about 10th, 9th place there a few times, and we're right there. Got a little crazy, and I like the way you drive, man. I like how you're able to just, when you notice it's getting really crazy, and you're telling yourself, hey, we're not necessarily in the need for stage points here, right? Like we just want to bring the car home and have a chance to win. Back it off, take care of the car. You did everything right. We talked about after the race in the garage area. There was nothing that I think you could have done about that. If your spotter had the instincts of Flash Gordon, maybe telling you dive it to the inside right now, like dive, and maybe you could have missed the 19. But it's just a racing deal, But yeah, I'm really excited to see what you got at Dover. I know we talked about how that's a track that you're very happy with. You enjoy racing at that track and whatnot. It's a very driver track. It's something, a lot of throttle control, especially in these Xfinity cars. I've actually been doing lots of iRacing the past couple of days, been doing lots of Dover. And there's one thing I know about those Xfinity cars. It is throttle sensitive. You have to be easy on that throttle and know when to get back on the gas mid corner to get that run and not burn up those tires and everything. And whatnot. So, but hey, I'm happy we at least got some fire shots though of you in that 48 though. There was some good shots, especially got a nice shot of you behind that 3, who was your draft partner there for a little bit, which was really, really cool and whatnot. I guess tell me about the Xfinity race here. I guess just asking you here on an aggression level from the driver's seat, what was that aggression from a 1 out of 10 for that Xfinity race that you saw?
It was high. I would say it was up in an 8, for most of the race. And unfortunately, I didn't get to be out there for the last couple of laps. And so from what I saw on TV and what I heard, it sure looked like that aggression level went to an 11 because they couldn't even seem to complete an overtime.
Three overtimes to finish that race.
So yeah, for most of the race, it sat at about an 8, which for 300 miles, an 8 is exhausting to be at the whole time. You're sitting there the whole time knowing that trouble can happen in any second. And you're looking around and you're like, well, that guy's trying to cause trouble right now. This guy's trying to cause trouble right now. We're all in a really sketchy position out here when guys are pushing that hard. So that's where that balance comes in with, do you want to be up in that mess right now and take that chance, or do you want to try to finish? And there were points in the race where we were up in it. There was points where I got up to 5th or 6th and we were trying to get forward. And there were other times where I'm in the middle and I'm seeing how guys are racing. And I'm like, I don't like the feel of this right now. It's not looking good. Let me bail out, let those guys wreck and get back to them after. So, you had a mix of that throughout the race, but I'd say the aggression level overall was pretty high. And I think that's when having somebody a little more experienced, like I feel like I've been in enough of these super speedway races to know when I like what I'm seeing and when I don't like what I'm seeing. And sometimes having that experience level will pay dividends because you might know when to get out and really be able to capitalize on that. And I thought that we did, and still ended up getting caught up in somebody else's mess, unfortunately. But that happens.
Yeah, it happens. And hey, move on to Dover, get yourself a good run over there, and do some big things. I see you and Big Machine doing some good stuff. I'm really excited to see what you got at Dover. But we talked about aggressiveness at Talladega, and of course, drivers who tend to be aggressive tend to get up there and win the race. And Noah Gragson wins, and honestly, kind of a shocker, his first win of the season. I mean, the way he's been running this year, I thought he already would have won already. That was his first win this year at Talladega. And I know we mentioned a few episodes back about the Xfinity series about.
Well, he won it at Phoenix.
See, this is why you're the NASCAR driver. Sorry, his second win of the season for Noah Gragson. There we go, second win. But hey, that just makes it sound better. Second win for Noah Gragson already after last year was kind of a disappointing season for him. We talked about it when Jesse Punch was on the show, how Noah just looks like a different driver. He just seems different. Is it a maturity thing? Is it more of just like kind of a laid back and let your skills do the talking and everything and just kind of take it lap by lap? I know we're still a long way from the playoffs and everything. We got a long way to go, but I wanted to ask you this, since I know you do lots of Xfinity racing and whatnot. To me, do you see Noah at the moment being the guy to be for the championship right now? Or are you leaning towards the Ty Gibbs side, or maybe it's somebody else that we're not mentioning?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think on the Ty Gibbs end, I think it's his championship to lose. I think that he's easily in the fastest car, the best team, and I think that at this point,
That's just by watching.
yeah, it'd be shocking. It'd be shocking for him to not make it to Phoenix in the championship 4, and frankly, I think it'd be shocking for him not to be the fastest car when we get to Phoenix for that. But he is young, and I wouldn't say that for sure he's going to execute all of that perfectly, and you absolutely may get a wily veteran that's able to pounce on that and steal the championship from him. You've got AJ Allmendinger, who's very experienced with a lot of wins, knows exactly what he's doing. I'd put my money on him really being able to focus and come through when it's clutch time at the end, and I could absolutely see him grabbing a championship. And I think Noah is kind of somewhere in the middle. I think early in the season, we talked about seeing a totally different Noah, really mature, just laying down unbelievably consistent results, super impressive. I think there were a few weeks there, maybe a month, that I felt like he may have slipped a little bit. And now the last couple of weeks, I feel like we're seeing him back again in peak form. So I do think for him, it's going to all come down to, well, where can he find himself mentally in the playoffs? Is he in that peak form and he's just clicking them off, laying them down, and just really firing on all cylinders? Because if he is, who did I say won Phoenix?
No,
all he has to do is do that again. If he does that again, it's a championship. So, I think for him, you don't know what you're going to get each time, but he's certainly capable of winning the championship. And if that's the confidence, the mentality he brings into that finale, then yeah, he's going to be a real contender for the championship. To me, I think that those are probably the 3 guys that are going to be duking it out for the championship. I think you've got the speed in Ty Gibbs. I think you've got the aggression and the confidence in Gregson. And I think that you've got the experience and the maturity in AJ. And I think one of those 3 pillars is going to win this championship. And it could be any one of those 3. And with the format that the championships work, you and I have no point in even discussing it, because none of it matters until the last day.
Exactly.
The key is going to be the 3 of them have to make it to the final 4 to be able to duke it out for the championship. And that is easier said than done, because you've got 3 race rounds in the playoffs. All it takes is a bad race and 2 other races where you don't put down what you need to put down to make up for that bad race, and you're not in that championship 4. So we're talking about the 3 contenders, but we don't know that they're going to be the 3 contenders. One of those guys might be the only one that makes it to the final 4 at the end of the year. So I guess time will have to tell, but at this point in the season, I see those 3 as probably being your main contenders.
Time will tell. And, many are watching and probably asking, why aren't we talking about the Cup Series? Listen, there's no favorite yet, okay? I can't even say right now. I mean, Chastain, he's got 2 wins. William Byron has 2 wins, but their second wins were a plate race, right? Not taking anything away from that, though. But I'm just saying, you're not going to win the championship by winning a plate race. So right now, I don't even look at the plate races. I look at everything else. Everyone has 1 win. Everyone has 1 win that's locked into this championship that is not a plate race right now, besides Austin Cindric and everything. I don't even know. I don't even know who we could say is a favorite for it. I mean, we can name a few that are like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to be in the playoffs fighting for a spot, but you can't even pinpoint someone that's like, that's the guy. You can't even do it yet. It's
no idea. I mean, you could look at the Phoenix race and you could say who was strong. I saw Penske was very strong. Hendrick was pretty strong. Stewart-Haas ended up winning the race ultimately.
Yep.
But here's the thing. That was such an early race in the season, and Phoenix is the last race of the season. The next-gen development within these teams and manufacturers is going to come so far
Oh, yeah.
between these 2 races that the spring Phoenix race is almost going to be completely irrelevant to
You'll
what
see a whole
we'll
different race.
be likely to see in November. So who knows? I agree with you. I think it's way too early to even talk about Cup playoff picture right now. I think what we can talk about is if there's going to be more winners than there are playoff spots, which I think is absolutely possible.
It's possible.
It's certainly looking like it's possible. But yeah, if we're talking about who we think that Final Four is going to be or who we think our champion could be, anyone's guess is as good as mine. I've got no idea.
I really don't know either. I don't. Like there's some guys who you would think would already have won a race this year that haven't even won yet, which is crazy. So we're gonna see, I think, 12 winners at least, 13. It's gonna be there, maybe even 14. I'm not sure about the 16 yet. Wait a few more weeks. If we get like 2 out of the 3 next races are first time winners for the season, I'm going to think that 16 is very, very possible. We'll see what happens. But speaking of possible first-time winners, heading to Dover, heading to Dover, a very hard track for drivers. It is a what's that certain word I'm looking for?
A monster.
He knows exactly where I was going with it. It is a monster type of track. It is very demanding on drivers. May not look tough on paper, but on the track, it is a whole different beast. We've heard drivers when they post their qualifying times, they take one deep breath and they don't breathe the rest of the lap. True story. A lot of people have said they have done it before.
That will be 23 seconds of not blinking and not breathing.
Absolutely. So kind of heading into this cast, we know you're racing at Dover this weekend for Big Machine, of course. We'll all be cheering for you, but we always like to preview this Cup race here. We don't know what's going to happen here. We can't really look at last year's results and say, hey, Hendrick Motorsports is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 again. We don't know exactly how that car compares to this car. So who did you pick for Talladega, by the way? Who was your pick? I remember
Brad Keselowski, and I don't even know where he finished.
And I picked Bubba, and he got wrecked on the last lap. So I don't think either of us were close. I don't know. Maybe I beat you this week. Maybe I did. I don't know. I'll take any dub I can at this rate. But heading into Dover here, Kaz, just looking into this, who do you got? Who do you think is going to be that guy that's going to come out here and win at Dover?
I'm looking at Chase Elliott. I feel like Chase Elliott's been really strong at Dover over the last couple of years. Hendrick's obviously been great so far this year. I think Chase Elliott gets his first win of the season and adds to that winners list.
Okay. All right. A solid pick for sure. I think we all know it's just a matter of time for when Chase is going to win this year. It's just a matter of time. We don't know when it's going to happen. It's a very tight field right now. A good pick. He was definitely someone I was thinking about in like my top 3, 4 picks or so. But I'm going to go a little bit on a limbo here. It's crazy to think I'm even calling this guy a limbo of a pick, but just at the rate with how they've been going this year, I'm going to go to the Joe Gibbs side, and I'm going to choose Martin Truex Jr. I got Martin Truex. He's had good results at Dover. I think this is a good week for him to bounce back and have himself a lot of speed here. I know the 19th been. He has not won yet. He has not won yet this year, but he's been very quiet this year. He hasn't had that speed that we're known to seeing out of that 19 team. So I'm thinking this is going to be a week for Martin Truex to bounce back. I think Hendrick's going to be strong, but I feel like Gibbs is going to pull some late race magic or something's going to happen to where Martin Truex is going to get the dub. So that's who I have.
Let's see.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens this weekend at Dover. But guys, that's going to do it for All Clear today. Thank you so much for watching. Great episode, great conversations as always. Make sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts and of course subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, so you don't miss any episode of the show. He is Kaz Gralla and I am Joey Stone. And now you are officially all clear for Dover this weekend. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.